today, what is my message for you today? Okay, well, I had a different message, and then it changed. And it changed because we had the storm, right? And because we had the storm, there was no power. And because there was no power, it was almost like there was this window of time that was open where I could finally accept Dr. John Townsend's invitation to go visit him in California and be part of some leadership event that he was part of. And I was with Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend all week. And so what I wanted to do today was to really share a message on what I learned from my time with them, okay, so that you can also have those insights for your life. When my 5-year-old granddaughter asked me a question, and I'm trying to figure out what the answer is, I might utter a sound like, or, have you ever done that? Because you're trying to gather your thoughts, right? And what she will do is she'll go, what? I said, let me think about it. Why do you need to think about it? Okay? And she's always so urgent because in her mind, life is very clear. It's either yes or it's no. Why do you have to think about it? And what I realized is she doesn't understand the complexities of, yes, I want to go on the trip with you, but I also need to be here to manage some details in the house. And this is what we wrestle with, right? Where you've got option A, option B. There's only one of you, right? You can't be in two places at the same time. You can't save everyone in your family. You can't save every program in your organization. You're going to have to make some choices. And I think what I learned in this week is for leaders to have the emotional capacity to make choices that are clear and that are aligned with your values and your mission. Something needs to happen in you emotionally so there is not some clog in your system. Okay? If you're dealing with stuff in your life that you've actually not dealt with, what happens is it will stack up. And before you know it, you find yourself burned out or you find yourself depressed and you don't even know why. And I just felt like God sent me to this thing, not because I was depressed or burned out, but because he was trying to teach me some self-care so that that might not happen. Okay, so I think what I wanted to share with you today was what I learned about how do you clear up that emotional pipeline in you so that you are not bottled down with baggage from the past and you're not able to go where God wants to take you. Okay, so here's just some insights I'd like to share with you. A first insight is this. You will go faster and further if you journey with others. Okay, so for some of you who think you're a lone ranger, it's not going to work. You'll slow yourself down. You will go further and faster if you journey with others. Dr. Townsend wrote a book called The Power of the Other. Okay, it's actually based on neuroscience. The power of the other. Ecclesiastes 4:9, 2 are better than one because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either falls, his companion can lift him up, but pity the one who falls without another to lift him up. 2 Corinthians 7:6, but God who comforts the humble comforted us by the coming of Titus. Okay, the power of the other in your life. Dr. Cloud said God designed the Christian community to provide each member of the community with what we need to thrive. Okay, the need for one another is found in all the one and other verses. Okay, so it's like maybe you've read these one another verses, but maybe what you never connected is that those one another verses is how God wired your brain to actually find strength in your life. So if you don't have those one another's in your life, it's actually going to slow you down. John 13:34, love one another. Romans 12:10, show family affection to one another. Romans 12:16, be in agreement with one another. Romans 15:7, accept one another. Ephesians 4:32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving one another. Ephesians, okay, it says don't get drunk with wine. Right? Don't get drunk with wine, which leads to reckless actions. And so, you know, when you've been around people who are drunk, they say all kinds of crazy things, right? The contrast of that, God says, don't be drunk with wine. Instead, this is what you're supposed to do with one another. He says, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. I mean, the words you say to one another are to be encouraging and affirming. Encourage one another, build each other up. Be concerned about one another in order to promote love and good works. Okay, so here's the key. To access the strength from one another, something needs to happen as a prerequisite. And I think what that needs to happen is trust. You see, if I don't trust you, I'm not going to let this one another into my life. Because I'm not going to trust anything you say. I'm not going to trust anything you do. So they talked about trust, which I thought was very interesting. Now, Dr. Cloud said, did you know that trust is so essential to your emotional health that God's words put that in us from the very beginning? In Psalms 22:9, you took me from the womb, making me secure while at my mother's breast. I was given over to you at birth. You have been my God from my mother's womb. Okay, so she says, why is trust being built, or how is trust being built at the mother's chest? And so what he showed in the neuroscience is that what we have in our brain is something called mirror neurons. Okay, if someone makes a sound, you make a similar sound. When the baby's crying, the mother tends to go, right? You're making a similar sound to calm the baby down. And so he said that leads to a very significant research, and that is if you want someone to trust you, the most important thing is not to say to them, you can trust me, right? He said people just verbally say, oh, you can trust me. And he says the brain actually can't process that. Why should I trust you? He said, do you know what is the most significant way for someone to trust you? It's like what happens with that baby and that mother is the mother is tuned in to the baby's needs. So there is a term they use, and it's called attunement. Attunement is when I am tuned into your emotions, and because of that, you trust me. Okay? I know that when I served at the College of Biblical Studies, I know that one of the reasons the president literally trusted me was not because of what I did. I mean, it is also what I did for the college, but it was because I was in tune to his stresses. I probably was the only one in the college who saw how stressed he was. And I didn't know that that built trust. I mean, I didn't know what the research was. But I would say to him, I know that there's nobody here who actually thinks about what your day is like. I know that when you went to that meeting and when that donor slammed the door in your face, that you literally cried. And I saw you cry. I want you to know that I saw that. I tuned in to his emotions where he trusted me. Anita's for me, okay? You want someone to trust you? You've got to tune in to their emotions. The more you tune in to a child, the more that child feels safe, okay? And then what happens is that child, as it grows, it internalizes safety, okay? So like I see in my grandchildren that my daughter-in-law is so consistent in how she cares for them that they are amazingly secure. They have internalized mom inside of them, so that if they leave a room, if they go somewhere else, they're confident because they carry that safety in them. I know that as God sends me out, that the founding leaders of Inspire Women and the ones who have walked with me, poured into me, prayed with me, I have literally internalized them. So when I go, it's like I carry them in my heart as I go, okay? But that was only built through trust. It was them being in tune to the mission, to the cause, to what we were doing together, that trust relationship built up. What I experienced last week with John and with Henry Cloud was this intense week of creating this safe community that they feel the church was supposed to be. But sadly, it is not. Okay? The environment where people are not judged, where people can be themselves and they can trust the community in order to find healing. And they wanted us to experience that by dividing us into groups. So there were 8 in my group. They were executives, they were pastors, they were leaders in different fields, and that's who was in my group. And I want to paint you a picture of what actually happened so that by the end of each day, literally, we were wiped out. I mean, it was like, don't talk to me. It was like, I can't process one more thing because it was so emotionally intense, right? So just imagine this. First group, I had 8 in my class. Nobody was saying anything. Okay, I was not a good participant because I get restless. Like, I don't understand what's supposed to be happening here. Okay, nobody says anything. I said, I don't understand. What is the theme? What is the focus? What is the end goal of this? What are we doing? I mean, I was like literally like that. And facilitator would say, what would you like the goal to be? Well, that drove me nuts. What do you mean, what do I want the goal to be? It's like, from this whole universe, what do I want the goal to be? And then she said, what we're doing here is we're creating space. Okay? And she says the brain cannot process what it has stuffed if there's no space. It's like you're in such a hurry to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that is actually you running from yourself and not processing what you need to process. So she says, so what we're doing here is we're creating space. Okay? And we're just going to sit here silently, and then whatever services is what we're going to process. So out of that, they wanted to process loss. And so they said, somebody want to process a loss? So I figured, okay, I'll process a loss. And so I said to them, well, I would like to process the loss of someone that I felt betrayed by, someone that I felt made a commitment to be here with me and broke the promise, and someone who literally wrecked my world because I trusted them. And I felt stupid, I felt duped, I felt like, you idiot, why did you believe them? And so they said, good. So I was the guinea pig, right? So they put a chair in front of me, asked somebody in the group to be that person, and say, sit there, be that person. And she says, Anita, talk to them. Tell them what you feel. So I'm talking to this person in the chair that I don't even know. And I would just say, and I don't know why I did this, because first of all, I don't know any of these 8 people in this group, right? And I don't even know why I was so transparent, because I was like, here's it. You know, might as well, let's try this process. I think it was like, if I'm going to be here, I might as well just go with their rules and see what happens. And I could say, I thought we were committed to the same cause. I thought we were going to do this together. I thought we were going to land this together. You promised you would always stay. And then you didn't even warn me. You had an exit plan and you didn't even tell me. And you wrecked my life. You wrecked my world. And I said, and the thing that I feel so stupid about is I still miss you. Okay? And I could say that. And then the facilitator would say to the person in the chair, tell Anita what you heard. And so they would repeat what they heard. And then she'll say to me, Anita, tell them what you need from them. Okay? So then I could say to them, I just need to know that you left because of something in you. I guess I just need to know that it wasn't that there was something flawed in me. Was it that I wasn't enough? What was it that you needed from me that I couldn't give? I just need to know that since you've left, that you're in a better place. That maybe if I couldn't give it, that at least you found it somewhere. Okay? And so she asked the other person, can you say that to her? Okay, and so this person says that to me. And this person, she actually knew something about me. And then she would say, you know, I tried to get you to a place where you would be okay. I just felt like if I could just take you to this level, that you're going to be okay going off on your own. I just couldn't do it. I was dying. There was something in me I needed to resolve. It had nothing to do with you. And then she would say to me, what would you like to say back to her? And I could say to her, I am sorry that I couldn't be what you needed. I'm sorry that you needed something from me. And I just wasn't there for you. But I just am so grateful to know that maybe you found it somewhere else. And I just need to know that you're better, that you're okay. And then the facilitator would say, and now I want you to say goodbye. Okay? She said the hardest time we have is to say goodbye. And so then I said, goodbye for now. And one day we'll be together when we're together with Jesus in heaven. But for now, goodbye. And then she said goodbye. All right? So then she said, the power of the other. All the others in the group was watching. And she would say to them, I want you to tell Anita what you saw. Don't give her advice. Just connect with her emotions of what did you feel when she shared that, what did you see, and just give her that feedback. And so one person would say, when you said, but I still miss you, it triggered something in me because there was someone in my life who left who I still miss. And I really connected with that. And someone else would say, I just saw you as someone who needed a safe place. And she said, and as tears were going down your face, it was going down my face. And I was so angry that you didn't have a safe place to just say that your heart was broken. That as a leader, you always had to be on. You always had to be okay. And you couldn't feel safe to say, I'm not okay. And he said, and I just wish that I had been there to be that safe community for you. And then someone else said, I'm not from the religious world. I don't really understand this thing about God's call. He said, but what I saw as you were sharing was, I saw your authenticity. I saw your purity. I saw your passion to be able to get up just because this is God's will and God's mission. And she says, and I want you to know that I would follow you. as a leader. And he says, and I just want you to know that Inspire Women is so blessed to have you leading them. She said, this is what I saw. Okay? And so this is the power of the other, right? Speaking into your life. And then the facilitator would say to me, so how do you feel? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, it feels almost like you've unclogged something, that maybe it was something that you thought, well, I thought I worked through that already. You know, that you felt that the channel was clear. And she said, what has happened in your brain is you have now cleared the channel for more energy and more creativity. He said, in your brain, you can now operate at a different level because you can't take all your grief and your losses and pile them one on top of another and not take the time to process. And he says, and you can't do that if you don't have a safe group, okay? You will go faster and further in life if you journey with others who are part of your safe circle. A second insight I learned, it was like, this is an insight, it was like the neuroscience evidence of how your brain actually heals your heart. I thought was very, very interesting. Okay, so there was like 7 things that I just remembered. It was like, God, this is like crazy. Okay, one is acknowledgement of the cost of choices. Okay, so if someone says to you, yeah, this is what I'm doing, and I'm happy to do it, or I'm happy to serve, okay, to have that attunement to, yes, you're happy to serve, but there is always a cost to service. So when you say to someone, you know, like I could say to my daughter-in-law, you are an awesome mom, okay, but I know there's a cost to that. I know that there are things maybe that you would rather do that you can't do because you're stuck in the house. I know that, you know, so you're actually speaking into that person the cost of service, which they say actually heals your heart when someone validates the cost. You know, that I see that you have been leading, but what I see is what your family had to give up in order to lead. I see that you're caretaking for a family member, but I also know that in order to do that, you don't get to go to lunches with your girlfriends anymore. You don't get to have that flexibility you once had. It's like someone who validates the cost of the choices you've made. The second thing I learned, there's seven insights. Second was, most decisions are based on feelings. Now, I thought that was interesting, okay? And they said this research shows in talking to someone, 7% of your message is communicated with words, okay? 7%. 38% is communicated through tone. And 55% is nonverbal. Its feelings are effective. That was the point. Okay, so like if I'm sharing a message with you, I'm not sure how much you will remember. But what you will remember is the feeling. Okay? You will remember that I saw her stand in front of me and I saw her tear up. I felt her heart for me. And it was through the emotions. Okay, the emotions communicates. And so like even when the group was sharing with me, I don't know how much of what they say I remembered. But what I saw was I saw them leaning forward as I was talking. I saw them tearing up. You know, I saw tears streaming down their faces as I was sharing. And because of that, I trusted them. Okay? It's like if you don't trust the person, you're not going to care what they say. So a lot of communications, they said, comes from the feelings and from the trust. The third thing I learned, which I thought was amazing, and this is something I know Joseph knows because Joseph comes from the military. They said the best research ever done on grieving comes from the military. Okay? Makes sense, right? That the military would invest in something like that with all the soldiers who have gone. They say the military has the best research on grieving, and this is what they have found, that we learn from them that healing comes from a warm other person, okay, in your life. Healing also comes from structure. Going to work is healing. I need to wake up at 8 in the morning. I need to drive in. I need to, he said, some people think, oh, I have to grieve, so they take everything off their plate. They say it's the worst way to heal. Structure actually helps you heal. Having to go to a meeting helps you heal. Having to get up and make a deadline helps you heal. Repetition from a warm person. Okay, so a warm person in your life, structure, repetition from a warm person, and then they said actually weeping. It's like having that space where you do nothing but just sob and get it out of your system. What they said was grieving alone doubles the time. Isn't that interesting? Grieving in the midst of a safe relationships will cut the time in half. That you have someone around you that you feel you can grieve with. A fourth insight, this was from Dr. Townsend in The Power of the Other. He says, now this is where I'm thinking most people will fall short. You need 3 people in your life that you can process with at least 30 minutes a week, he said. Okay, so do you have 3 people in your life, safe people, that you can process with 30 minutes a week? He said that's what your brain actually needs to unclutter all of that so that you can actually flow. Okay. Another point Townsend made was, now I thought this was interesting. You could practice this. He said, if you want to know how to pick safe people in your life, he said, let me show you how. You start by sharing something vulnerable. So I might say something like, I don't know if I have the faith for what's in front of me. Okay? That's just sharing something vulnerable. And they said a safe person is someone who will tune in with your emotions, and they might say something like that, it's a lonely place when you sense God's calling and that he's calling you. So they're just tuning into what you just said, okay? What an unsafe person would be, he said, is they might say something like, did you see the score in the Rockets game? What has that got to do with what I just said? That is someone who's not comfortable with emotions. And so they changed the topic. Okay, so she said, so you can test, is this person I can actually trust? He said, so they'll either talk about something else, or another thing they'll do is they are not comfortable with you being vulnerable. Because you being vulnerable makes them feel vulnerable. I just need to know you're in control. So if you're vulnerable, it makes me nervous. So the way I'm going to deal with it is I'm going to criticize you. So if you say, I just don't know if I have the faith to do it, they might say, you can't say that. You're the leader. You're supposed to know. You need to go spend more time with God. All right? This is a person who can't handle your vulnerability. And so they'll tell you that there's something wrong with you. They'll say things like, let me tell you what's wrong with you. Because they need to fix you. They can't sit with you in the midst of what you're feeling. So he says, so this is how you pick who are the safe people in your life. Dr. Henry Cloud had a list on how to pick safe people. He said, you have to look for someone with understanding. Now, I thought this was very interesting. He says, when you trust someone, you can be careless. Okay? How many people do you talk to where you go, oh man, I can't talk to that person today because I got to filter my words. I got to, you know, I can't get my thoughts together. What would they think about me? So it's not someone I can just call. It's like, got to get my act together before I call them, right? He says that if you find someone you can trust, this is someone you can be careless with. I don't have my thoughts together. I don't know how point A and point B connects. I'm just talking, okay? And I don't need you to take that and now go spread all kinds of things about me, which is what an unsafe person will go, oh man, have you talked to Anita lately? She sounds really like a basket case, right? So then you don't feel free to share, okay? He says, someone who understands you, he says, check their motive. He talked about finding a surgeon for the knee surgery. He said the first surgeon he went to looked at his x-rays and said, yeah, you need surgery, schedule it. He walks out. And Henry Cloud said, wait. What do you mean? He says, I'm telling you the truth. You need surgery. End of discussions. Just schedule it. And he just walks out, okay? He said, well, I don't know if I want to do it with this surgeon. Second surgeon, he said, looks at his case, calls in a bunch of student doctors and said, man, look at this interesting kneecap. You know, we can do this, and then I can show you. He said he turned me into a teaching lab, right, where my knee was a good case study. He said, what is their motive? The third surgeon said to him, do you play golf? He goes, yes. He goes, we're going to get you back on the golf course. How old are your kids? He said, you might have grandkids soon. You want to be able to run around so that you can be with your grandkids. He said the third person, his motive was for him. It's like, how will this affect your life? And let me help you get there. Okay, so he said you check for understanding, you check for motive, and then he says you check for ability. He said just because someone is someone that that you can trust, he says trust is contextual. Okay, it depends on the context. It might be, yes, I trust you as a person, but I sure don't trust you to build a house. Okay, he says trust is contextual. And he said something, I thought this was good. He said the Navy SEAL says you fall to your level of training. No one rises to the challenge. He says you fall to your level of training. And so there are people in your life, you could say, the reason I don't trust you is because you're totally incompetent in this area. And that's okay. It's not like there's anything wrong with you. It's just that you're not good at this. And this is what we need. Okay, he said you got to verify ability. He said you have to assess character. He said because some people, even though they have ability, they don't have the character to stay when things are rough. And so if you're on a mission where it's a long journey and you may not get results soon, if they can endure, they're not going to be able to make it in this mission. Okay? So you've got to assess their character. And then he said, finally, you look for a track record and a mental map. And he does a lot of this with people who are addicts or alcoholics or whatever. He says they can say all kinds of things on how they will change. He says, but you've got to look at the pattern. You've got to look at what have they done before and what will they do again unless they have done something to change the pattern. Okay, so he said, you've got to look at that. Okay, you look at understanding. Is that someone you can be careless with? You look at their motive, you look at their ability, you look at their character, and you look at their track record. And then he said that, and if people do you wrong, he said, forgiveness is free, but trust is earned. Okay? I don't get to just trust you because you say, trust me. Okay? He said, forgiveness is free and trust is earned. So, to summarize, this is my takeaway. How then should you live? I felt like in order to make clear decisions and to clear the emotional blockages in your life, you need to find 3 people. 3 safe people that you can process with, and just that they will let you feel whatever you want to feel. Because you actually will come to healing if you can, so that they don't judge you. You know, and you can say whatever you want to say. They don't react to it. They don't tell you why you shouldn't feel that way. They just let you feel it so you can work through it. Let me conclude with this. You know, the Olympics is going on. And as I was watching that, I thought, so many times in life, right, you have someone who has the opportunity to be the one who steps out on the platform. And it doesn't mean they don't have support. The family might support them. They might have a coach. They might have sponsors who are sponsoring them. But the reality is this, when that moment comes, you are the one in the arena. It is you, okay? You might be the one in the courtroom. It's you on the stand. You might be the one making the presentation to your management. It's you. You might be the one sharing a message that could change everything. It's you, okay? I don't think you can get away from physically, it feels like it's just me. Because the reality is, it is just you. You're the only one out there. What you can do is you can internalize the support of all those who have walked with you so that it doesn't feel like it's just me out here, that you bring them with you. And you have to accept the call that there will be a time in your life where as much as you share with the people around you what you need, this part of the journey is yours, which is exactly what Jesus did when he was in Gethsemane and he tried to get the disciples to stay up with him and they couldn't because they were either too tired or the journey was too long. He wasn't mad at them. He was vulnerable enough to ask for it, but he didn't get it. And then what he did was he knew that he was in a part of the journey where only he could step into the arena. He alone was going to go to Calvary. And I think that for each of our lives, you might have a season in your life where it's just you, okay? And you're going to be the one going. And I think the focus of Jesus was, it was the joy beyond the cross that got him through. And I think for each of us that we would remember that the story never ends at Calvary, okay? The story and pattern for our lives, the way God designed it, it always celebrates the resurrection that is beyond Calvary. So in whatever season or trial that you are in, that it is just temporary. And beyond that is an eternal life, an eternal reward. So that is what gets you through. That is my message for you.